Good evening, everyone. I wanted to do a real weather podcast finally. This evening is Thursday, it is May 20th, and we have some very exciting weather. The reason why it's exciting is because it is the very first time that Chicago is going to get hit by this. Now, not all forecasts agree on the details in regards to this, but all forecasts do agree on the general trend as to what's going to be happening here. We have a dome of heat that is developing on the East Coast, and it is gradually spreading as it develops further to the west, and it's going to move just west enough to cover the Chicago area and keep all of the real heavy precipitation, the rain, the thunderstorms coming off of the Gulf Coast, which is going all the way up into Minnesota and Iowa. That's going to continue, but we're missing it all. We might get a little bit of a shower or a thunder shower. We can't rule that out completely over the next few days, but pretty much that high pressure system is going to cap the environment, making rain and thunderstorms almost an impossibility. This is especially true for northern Indiana, which is for Shabbos, which is going to be solidly in this warm capped environment. Nonetheless, there is a non-zero chance for a possible shower, maybe even a rumble of thunder there, but the general forecast is sunny and dry. Lakefront, cold front probably will come through the area Sunday evening. That's not stopping Tom Skilling from saying highs will be in the low 90s for 3 consecutive days. Shabbos, Sunday, and Monday. Lakefront cold front will cause much colder temperatures by evening, temperatures in the 50s or even the 40s, even though the daytime high might be in the low 90s. And then that front moves back as a warm front onto the lake. Highs rise back into the low 90s by Monday. Now let me just explain what's going on here in terms of those low 90s, because you're not going to find those low 90s on any weather app. Even Tom Skilling's own app, his app is forecasting highs of 86 and 87 degrees. So I'm just going to explain that. The computer models are not forecasting low 90s. Tom Skilling likes to go ahead and basically forecast what the computer models are going to be forecasting. That's one thing he does. So if there's a general trend upwards, such as yesterday, low 80s, and today they're forecasting mid 80s, he'll just take the extra jump and go for the low 90s. But in this case, I don't think that's exactly what he's doing. He's doing it based upon the climatology. Now, why are temperatures getting so hot here in Chicago? Because you're not going to see such temperatures down south. And part of the reason is because although it's going to be humid, only moderate humidity is expected here. Dew points in the 60s. And remember, the higher the dew points, the more water vapor there is in the air, the less efficient the sun is at heating things up. So when you have Gulf Coast level humidities, the temperatures down there are actually going to be cooler than what they will be here in Chicago. Currently, we are seeing dew points about 60 degrees here in Chicago, 59 degrees officially at the airport. But if you head out into the cornfields of Iowa, they are reporting dew points in some locations in the low 70s. Even in Minnesota, the low 70s. That's Gulf Coast levels. If you go down into the Gulf Coast, the highest dew point you'll find is probably Galveston, Texas at 74 degrees. Maybe you'll find an isolated spot higher than that, but nothing in the upper 70s as far as I know. You have to go all the way down into Mexico. There actually is one town, according to Big Sky, which I question sometimes its accuracy. There's one town which is reporting a dew point of 80 degrees. That's down in Mexico. It seems like that town is always reporting a dew point of 80 degrees. The only other place in the world right now where you could find 80-degree dew points is in India, and I think someplace further to the east, the highest dew point that I saw was 82 degrees in the world. That's very far away from this country. Dew points in Florida Florida are really low, relatively speaking. They're down in the 60s. In fact, there's a red flag warning in effect, and there's 26 other types of advisories and warnings in effect issued by the National Weather Service, including winter storm warnings, winter storm advisories, air quality alerts, and severe thunderstorm watches and warnings, and all different types of flood advisories and flood warnings. The forecast today, the high temperature officially hit 86 degrees. That is the summer threshold. 30 degrees Celsius, which is 86 degrees Fahrenheit, is a summer threshold. We officially hit it today. 7 straight days of highs in the 80s are a strong likelihood here in Chicago. The last time Chicago had 7 consecutive days with temperatures in the 80s was all the way back last August. Not all forecasts agree temperatures will be in the 80s for 7 consecutive days, but realize that's because as you go further out, they tend to rely upon the computer models. But those familiar with climatology, such as Tom Skilling, says it's highly likely that temperatures will be in the 80s for the next 7 consecutive days. We do have a lake, however, here in Chicago, and that always messes things up, almost always, so there's never a guarantee over here. Even for Shabbos here in Chicago, you can't really swear to anything. Those low 90s there have been times the low 90s turned into the 70s because of clouds which came in from a leftover thunderstorm complex that developed in Wisconsin. And ever since those experiences have happened here in Chicago, it's always difficult to forecast 90s with high confidence unless Wisconsin will also be in the 90s, and Wisconsin will not be in the 90s. But nonetheless, we do have a front which will hang out around here, but forecast highs ranging from 86 to 91 degrees for the next several days, temperatures likely remaining at least in the low 80s for the next 7 consecutive days. The big story for today, where temperatures went into the mid-90s in northern Russia. Temperatures are going to remain in the 90s there for a long, long time. This is amazing stuff. There should be articles about it. This should be making it onto the front page if it wasn't for the Middle East crisis, which is possibly ending, actually, Emir to Hashem. But in any case, we have major floods going on down south. The other thing that developed today, for the first time, Chicago is now in a severe drought situation. The soil is now super dry. All that rain is falling down in the south, and we are headed into a drought. That is a major reason as to why temperatures are going to be so high. Warmest temperature in Illinois today, according to Alexa, who claims to get her weather reports from AccuWeather, 89 degrees for Illinois, 89 degrees for Indiana. Temperatures were 89, I think, for Minnesota, but in the mid-Atlantic area, temperatures were in the low and mid-90s for all of those states, including Pennsylvania. And that's really where the peak heating is occurring, over there and in the desert Southwest. It is time for me to go right now. There's plenty more to talk about, but I do have to go. I wish everybody a wonderful day. Take care and enjoy this beautiful summer weather.